Video games. The earliest video game was created in 1952 as Tic-Tac-Toe, running on vacuum tube computers. Video games were introduced as a commercial entertainment medium in the 1970s and became the basis of a major entertainment industry in Japan, the United States and Europe in the late 1970s. Today, video games have undergone radical changes, several decades of updates so that video games are no longer confined to consoles, arcade games to console games to endgame, and then to the current boom in cell phone games. In today's mobile games have become an inseparable part of many people's lives. The first arcade game appeared in the United States in 1971. The arcade at that time is mostly to coin to play, compared to the then crane machines and pinball machines. The arcade is a computer program to present to the people, so it attracted a large number of players. After all, it was the time when the game has just risen to prominence, and people maintain a very high curiosity about the game. After all, it was a time when games were just on the rise and people were very curious about them, so families would try this new thing. The first arcade game to explode in popularity was the well-known Pac-Man, which was also known as the most famous game character at the time, and even launched its own peripheral products, so you can imagine how obsessed gamers were with the game at the time. In fact, Pac-Man also tried to launch in the home machine. Players are also very much looking forward to this, but the reality is cruel. Home machine Pac-Man and the arcade version compared to a completely unlike a thing. Simply say the picture quality is a big difference. Countless players asked for a return at the same time, still chose a stronger gameplay of the arcade. After the fighting games into the arcade market, plus SNK launched the King of Fighters series as more players love, but also allows two players at the same time to fight together, so that players have ignited the heart of the victory. Many players spent a lot of money and spent a lot of time in game halls to hone their skills in order to beat their opponents. During the arcade boom, you had to wait in line to even play a popular game. Arcade game manufacturers also released many highly interactive arcade games, such as racing simulators, which allowed gamers to simulate the effects of real racing cars, and were also popular with gamers for their dynamic music, and are still one of the hottest games in the arcade today. Arcade industry. After more than a decade of glory, the problem also came. With the advancement of technology, home consoles and computers slowly formed a scale. The world's popular Nintendo Red and White machine also successfully ended the arcade era at that time. Internet cafes are also at that time the rise of large-scale. Game manufacturers also began to try to transfer the game to the computer platform, so the computer appeared in the game, and the development of the Internet has also allowed players to connect with players from thousands of miles away, and the Internet is also the most popular game. The development of the Internet also allowed gamers to connect with players thousands of miles away, something that is unsurpassed in arcades. Most arcades had a very attractive look to attract the attention of the players, but the content of the games was very simple, and many of the games remained unchanged from when they were first released. The arrival of online gaming exposed the shortcomings of the arcade, which only had single-player games, and eventually led to many gamers choosing computers, which had more obvious advantages, over the arcade, which was already lagging behind the times. Seeing that the arcade market had withered away, major game makers chose to stop exporting arcade games and turn to home machines and computers, which had a better market. Nowadays, mobile phones are not only more portable, but also have very high gaming performance, and most of the mobile games are free to download to the players, and the high cost and need to go to a specific place to play the arcade, of course, will not be so popular. Some of the classic games from the arcade have also been ported to the cell phone, so players don't need to go out to enjoy the classic games at home. From the 1980s to the present day, the gaming industry has experienced a transition from the console era to the mobile gaming era. Nintendo and Sony, as the representatives of the two major console platforms in the last century, once ruled the entire console gaming industry. Nowadays, the game market can be subdivided into three major markets: console games, mobile games, and PC games. In terms of market size, In 2017, Japan's handheld game market size reached 945 billion yen, $6.647 billion, accounting for as much as 62% of the country's game market, while the mainframe game market size of 344 billion yen, $2.421 billion, accounted for 22%, and the PC terminal game market size of 242 billion yen, $1.703 billion, accounting for 16%. The segmentation of the market is characterized by the dominance of the handheld game market, followed by the mainframe and PC game markets. The first handheld game appeared back in 1994, a Russian block game on Haganuk 2000, but the one that can really arouse the impression of readers should be the game of Buggy Snake installed on mobile phones by Nokia in 1997. According to statistics, about 350 million cell phones had the game of Buggy Snake at that time, and although these two games can be regarded as Adam and Eve in the history of handheld games, they are the most important games in the history of handheld games. Although these two games are called Adam and Eve in the history of handheld games, in the following 10 years, even if Java, Symbian, and Gameloft and other game vendors continue to research and development of handheld games, but because of the technical constraints of the cell phone, poor picture quality, small screen, etc., to make the game experience is not good, resulting in handheld game market has not yet appeared to change the game industry really games. Until 2007, there was a turning point for the handheld game industry, that is, Apple officially released the first generation of the iPhone. At that time the first generation of the iPhone was regarded by the media and the general public as a godlike existence, not only opened up the wave of smart touch phones in the following decade, but also shone a ray of light for the handheld game industry. In the following days, with the gradual expansion of the Android and iOS markets, smart touch phones slowly replaced other cell phones to become the mainstream of the market, and the handheld game market finally welcomed a historic moment, and a variety of mobile games began to become popular. From 2010 to 2013, after the mobile phones were freed from the restraints of keyboards, the mobile game industry experienced explosive growth, with popular games such as Angry Bird, Fruit Ninja and Plants vs. Angry Bird, Fruit Ninja, and Plants vs. Zombies became household names at the time, and game developers noticed the potential business opportunities of the handheld game market, and in the next few years, they released representative classic games one after another, ranging from Tower of Gods and Demons and My Name is MT in 2014 to My Name is MT nowadays. From Tower of Demons and My Name is MT in 2014 to Legendary Duel and Yin Yang Master nowadays, these games have successfully driven the explosive growth of the handheld game market through their excellent gaming experience and exquisite style of painting, which has made handheld games become the highest value category in the global game market. The category of the global game market is the most valuable one. What are the key factors that have led to the explosive growth of the handheld game market? 1. Low threshold of playing. Everyone is a player. With the increasing popularity of smartphones, the service targets of games are no longer limited to professional gamers who own esports laptops, and the game market is showing the phenomenon of everyone is a gamer, which in fact brings a very optimistic prospect for the development of handheld games, unlike online games, which are more popular than laptops. Handheld games are not like online games, compared to laptops or desktop computers which are categorized into esports and word processing. The design of cell phones are often of the same type, even if they are of different models, most of them are equipped with the same features, so players don't need to buy higher specification computers in order to play a specific game, they just need to turn on their smartphones to search for and download them from the App Store. In addition, the rapid development of smartphones in recent years, the configuration can even be comparable to a laptop, so that game manufacturers can easily determine the configuration of handheld game requirements at the same time, but also to maintain a certain level of quality and gaming experience, do not have to worry about the image quality, and operation will not make the player's smoothness of play or equipment is not on the problem, so that the game is no longer designed for players. but to allow everyone to play. The game is no longer designed only for players, but for everyone to enjoy the fun that the game brings to people. 2. The low difficulty of the game has become the center of gravity of the market. In the past, game companies, in order to extend the time players play in the game and cater to the needs of the players at the time, the game design is often not so easy to approach, but with the players of the game standards are getting higher and higher, game companies often have to spend more R&D costs to cater to the picky tastes of the players, so that the game players are gradually to the polarization of the development of the game, either to become experienced players, or do not contact with the game at all. But with the veteran players more and more picky, the game business also began to rebound. I believe what they think is, you ask for so much, the market is small and difficult to meet, I do not want to do business with you. The game business service center is also naturally from the picky veteran players to game bud. The service center of the game provider has also naturally changed from the old and picky players to the budding game players. In recent years, I believe gamers have found that in order to cater to the masses, the design of handheld games has mostly developed in the direction of simplified operation and popularization, and the purpose has also changed from the sense of achievement orientation to leisure. I believe that after a whole day's hard work at work or school, readers often turn on handheld games in the hope of relaxing, rather than being distressed by the achievement of a certain epic accomplishment, which has led to the development of the gameplay of StarCraft from the ancient age to the current legendary duel, whose gameplay is very different from that of Star Wars. This has led to the difficulty of the games from StarCraft to legendary duel, which is totally incomparable, and the original big gamers look down on handheld gamers. However, for game operators, the lowering of the game threshold represents the expansion of the market, and the expansion of the market represents more players, which naturally brings more revenue. At the same time, compared to the fussy old players who are difficult to satisfy, the new market is not only better developed and larger, but most importantly, the risk is also smaller, because compared to the fussy original old players, the new players have lower requirements for the game, and the sales volume is more guaranteed, which naturally brings less risk. Naturally, the risk is also smaller, so in the game business will shift the focus of the game to the hand game, the difficulty of the game gradually reduced at the same time, also makes more and more people begin to contact the hand game, resulting in the explosive growth of the hand game in recent years. 3. Low research and development costs, short cycle, low risk. Compared to online games that often cost tens of millions of dollars in research and development costs and hundreds of people in the team, handheld games often only need millions of dollars or even lower research and development costs. Research and development team is often not more than 30 people, low entry threshold, although this situation will have more competitors to seize this piece of cake, resulting in the flourishing period of handheld games is often very short, red, and fast retreat. Also fast, but for the game business is a short cycle of handheld games is not what they hope for. However, for game developers, a short cycle of handheld games is not what they want. Although the short cycle makes the handheld games developed by game developers often show the trend of no wash, it also means that game developers don't need to continuously optimize their products, but focus on how to earn the highest returns during the period of time when the game becomes popular. Because the game development of handheld games is simpler and the threshold is lower, game developers can develop multiple product lines at the same time. The more products they have means that the revenue is decentralized, and the risk is naturally lower, so for game developers, instead of continuing the high risk, high reward of the long cycle of online games and the high cost of research and development, it seems that game developers prefer to choose handheld games that have a considerable reward and low risk as a business. Instead, game developers seem to be more willing to choose handheld games, which have considerable returns and low risks, as the center of their products. 4. IP, intellectual property. In the game market, it is all kinds of copyrights derived from a game. Owning a strong IP is like owning a strong brand, and all products extended by the brand can use the same IP to attract the public, so that game developers can use such tactics as killing memories and selling sentimental feelings. The brand extension products can use the same IP to attract the audience, allowing game developers to use memory killing and selling nostalgia. Many popular handheld games are actually ported from the original online games, such as Paradise M and Swallowing Heaven and Earth M. And often this kind of memory killing tactics are very effective. In fact, this is also the game operators and players are happy to see. This is because for game developers, the risk of issuing games with IP is relatively low. The theme or other features of popular games have a certain degree of reputation, and after the relaunch of the game can often still attract old players to return to play, and secondly, the cost of issuing games with IP is relatively low, compared with the redevelopment of a new game, and the continuation of the previous work in the cost of investment is relatively low. For example, if an online game is ported to a handheld game, only the cost of transferring the platform is needed, so publishing IP games is not only cheaper for game developers, but also guarantees a certain amount of sales. On the other hand, for players, since games with strong IPs are often loved by players, players are naturally more willing to choose old games with good gaming experience and reputation than to play an unfamiliar game again, so the memory kill approach, although old-fashioned, is very effective, and is highly accepted by both game developers and players. Both game developers and players are very satisfied with it, which naturally leads to the fact that game developers have started to reissue the games that were very popular in the past, and this has successfully boosted the growth of the handheld game market. In 2009, Apple introduced the in-game payment function. With the continuous breakthrough of cell phone performance, the scale of the game market also continues to grow. According to market research institutions, the global game industry in 2022, the total revenue of about $200 billion, more than half of which comes from the cell phone games that can be played without money. The game is full of lessons, payment fees, and the scene of the act of recharging the network game. The most popular business model in the hand game, generally called draw card game, gacha, originated in Japan. The Japanese in 2006 in the function machine hand game invented this commercialization means. Players can be drawn by the game character, and the character's exclusive plot, props, equipment, fashion, and so on. Drawn things have different rarity. Card games are mostly about superficial fairness. Even if you don't spend any money, it's entirely possible to get lucky and get game content that other players would pay a lot of money to get, or to trade time for money and go through tons of in-game quests to get game content that can be drawn at a cost. If players want to take shortcuts, use the shortest time and the least amount of energy to get the most abundant game content, they need to endlessly kryptonite. The probability of open, guaranteed mechanism, after a certain number of consecutive draws will definitely get high rarity characters/props, so that card draw can be differentiated from gambling, to reduce the frustration of the players, to ensure that the kryptonite Big Brother can get the content they want, so that the heavy paying users will not be lost. The card draw mechanism can be adapted to a variety of types of games and players, and lay down a profit model for all kinds of free hand games. From an economic point of view, free hand games are perfectly in line with the concept of price discrimination, and the pricing strategy of game manufacturers is to first adopt a relatively high pricing to quickly filter out core players who are willing to spend a lot of money, so that they can pay for rare items, characters, equipment, etc. in the game, and gain a sense of superiority and achievement in the game, which will make them more willing to invest their money. Those players who are unwilling to spend money either spend a lot of time in the game as the companion of the kryptonite players, or their desire for competition and vanity is aroused and they join the camp of the kryptonite players, which ultimately maximizes the revenue of the game makers. In terms of utilizing human consumption psychology and social psychology to induce players to spend money, different types of free-to-play games are basically similar, starting with the use of a virtual currency system, which allows players to use real money to buy virtual currency, which is then used to purchase in-game items and services. This system allows players to feel like they are spending virtual money rather than real money, thus reducing psychological resistance to purchase. In order to keep players in the game for a long time, free-to-play games often use a reward system to encourage players to keep playing, such as daily login rewards, quest rewards, achievement rewards, etc., to keep players highly engaged in the game. These rewards are usually designed to give players a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, which motivates them to keep playing the game and spending virtual currency. At the same time, handheld games also limit the number of hours a player can play per day through a stamina mechanism. If the daily stamina limit is exceeded, an additional fee will be required to purchase the game, in order to limit the amount of content that Kryptonite players can obtain with their money through the unlimited brushing of tasks by freeloader players. The game will continue to launch a variety of time-limited activities to incentivize players to participate in the game as much as possible within a limited period of time. This sense of urgency makes players more likely to spend money in the game, while the introduction of discount promotions, limited time rare cards, etc. will make players feel that they need to seize the opportunity to recharge and draw cards, otherwise they will miss the chance. Many free-to-play games have social features, such as friend lists, guild systems, cooperative missions, and player battles. These features can promote communication, cooperation, and competition among players, thus building up a kind of social pressure. Players can show off their characters and items to each other, and this kind of display stimulates a sense of comparison among players, making them more willing to recharge for a better character. If a player's friends or guild members have spent a lot of virtual currency on a rare character in the game, the player may feel ostracized or left behind, accelerating their decision to spend virtual currency. Outside of the game, handheld game makers also emphasize on social media network to spread and expose the game, so that people will feel that if they don't play the game, they will be out of the social hotspot. In terms of the use of Kryptonite, players can extract rare characters and buy in-game items, such as rare equipment, rare materials, customized skins, etc. These characters and items are usually launched with very powerful values and cool skin appearances, which makes players feel that these items are very valuable and worth showing off, and that they can gain a higher social status and a sense of honor in the game, which stimulates their desire for collection and a competitive mentality, and further motivates them to collect. This stimulates players' desire to collect and their competitive spirit, which in turn motivates them to spend virtual money. In addition, many free-to-play handheld games have some kind of enhancement system, which allows players to improve the attributes of their characters or equipment. Game designers will set progress thresholds at key nodes of character enhancement, which requires players to put in a lot of time and effort. To save time and increase efficiency, players may choose to purchase in-game items or services. This is the only way to maintain their competitiveness in the game. This method makes players feel the actual effect of investing money, thus increasing their willingness to spend. In the design of the card draw mechanism, in order to induce new players to develop the habit of card draw, freehand games first provide players with free card draw opportunities, so that players can experience the fun of card draw. Once players develop the habit of card drawing, they may be more willing to pay for more card drawing opportunities. After that, the game will provide some promotional activities at the beginning of the game, such as the first charge gift pack, newbie benefits, etc. This kind of promotion stimulates players to try to recharge their cards. This kind of promotion will stimulate players to try to recharge and lower their psychological threshold of spending. Generally, recharge activities will be accompanied by incentives, such as recharge to send rare cards or props, recharge rebate, etc. These activities will make players feel that they can recharge more cost-effective, and can get more rare cards. The core of the card draw session is its psychological design. For background knowledge on psychology, search for Skinner's box experiment, which simply means that probabilistic rewards will make people addicted. The results of card draws in the game are random, and players cannot predict what they will get next time they draw a card. The uncertainty of the rewards will stimulate the players to gamble and become addicted to the game, making them want to try again and again to get better results. The interface design, sound effects, and hints of card draw games will try their best to make players feel excited and expectant, so that players will feel that they may get their favorite rare cards in the next card draw, thus stimulating them to top up their money. In addition, the aforementioned guarantee mechanism will make players feel that they have already invested a lot, and if they don't top up, they will lose everything, thus inducing them to continue to spend money. In view of this, legislation will soon be introduced in Europe for egg twisters and loot boxes, which means that some handheld games are abandoning the egg twister mechanism and adopting more transparent realization methods such as Battle Pass, BP. What kind of changes are coming to the handheld game market? Despite the growing popularity of mid-heavy and 3A shooters, there is still a lot of room for diversity in the shooter market. Expect to see more publishers partnering with well-known IPs as part of their operational strategy, and a lot of new games based on IPs. There are many medium to heavy handheld games that also support connectivity with PC and console games. What's interesting about many of these games is that most of them are brand new games, rather than direct ports of existing games to the mobile platform. For example, Final Fantasy VII, Eternal Peril is a retelling of the events of the Final Fantasy VII storyline, and is a great companion to the console version of the game for the millions of gamers who plan to pick up Final Fantasy VII, Rebirth this year on the console platform. Similarly, Clash Royale combines the Clash Royale mechanic with elements of PvE and role-playing games, RPGs, and fans of Clash Royale will be drawn to it because they like the IP, are familiar with it, and like to experience it through different gameplay mechanics. More and more studios are applying other mechanics, such as introducing mini-games as an alternative to the core gameplay elements, to diversify and experiment with new gameplay genres, and mini-games provide additional gameplay to allow advertising and marketing campaigns to reach a wider audience. Mini-games based on other popular core gameplay elements have been very successful, so it's not surprising that this trend is flooding into the larger handheld game market. The challenge of ad targeting has not abated, and expect to see more and more of your favorite handsets exploring new game genres through mini-games. There are more twisters than you can count in handheld games, and in 2022 a total of 18 countries called for tighter regulation of loot boxes, including twisters, slowing down twisters' growth somewhat. In early June, the Norwegian Consumer Council released a new report supported by consumer protection organizations in 18 countries on how games such as FIFA 22 and Raid: Legend of Shadows encourage players to spend money on random virtual items. The European Parliament voted on January 18 to take action against loot boxes and other forms of cash-in, and issued recommendations on cash-in. While these proposals will result in EU-only regulations, it is worth noting that Australia has proposed legislation that would rate games with loot boxes at 18+. The bill is currently in its second reading stage and is awaiting debate by members. It won't be long before twisters and loot boxes may be debated again in the UK. Some game studios are moving away from loot boxes, although publishers have not cited the legislation as the main reason for doing so. Mario Racing Tour and Smash Bros. Are two major games that have abandoned the twister mechanism, but it's worth noting that both games are large enough to not rely on twister as a major source of revenue. While some games are moving away from egg twisters, not all of them are. Playrix Games have been incorporating more egg twisters into their gameplay, and new types of egg twisters are still emerging in the marketplace, such as player engagement boosting egg twisters. This type of twister incorporates gameplay elements, such as winning a race or completing a dungeon, into the twister reward, and has been used in games such as Hearthstone Lore, Pokémon Go, and Diablo, to name a few. BP is one of the most effective real estate strategies for mobile game developers, and it has many benefits. It increases the conversion rate of low-spending players, it improves retention of players who complete BP, and the BP mechanism can be applied to all kinds of games. Shooters were the first to utilize this real estate method, and it is now common in games such as puzzles, RPGs, and multiplayer online battle arcade, MOBA, games. There are some variations, however, in that handheld games apply multiple BPS through tiered subscriptions, as well as BPS bound to time-limited events, sometimes with specific unlocking requirements. For example, the BP for the 3 elimination game Lily's Garden requires the player to earn the next reward within a specific time frame in order to unlock or increase the reward. Another new feature is the ability to unlock expired BPS, such as the Call of Duty handheld's BP library, through purchase. This is fantastic for players who missed out on previous seasons, where players might have otherwise missed out on previously exclusive dress-up items. Other interesting BP innovations include Hearthstone Legends Auto Attack Battlegrounds Mode BPS in addition to the normal BPS, as well as Merge Mansions Event BPS, which can be used to cash in on event rewards. Endless Duel has also recently introduced a special event BP, the M4 Battle Pass, in addition to the 2 regular BPS. The BP is associated with the MLBB World Championships, M4, where players need to complete specific missions, challenges and other activities to progress through the event, and can earn rewards from 2 types of reward tracks, free and paid. MLBB is well known in the gaming world, so this is an interesting example of a BP being used to raise awareness of a game's gaming events and realize cash from them. More than 60% of the top 20% of games on the US revenue charts use BP, and more innovative ways of applying BP are expected in 2023. After all, the goal of handheld gaming is to create a more diverse pipeline of realizations. In-game dress-up items are really popular in both video games and the original universe, and the digital fashion trend is here to stay. Of course, personalized dress-up items are already popular in RPGs and shooters, and are now becoming more popular in casual games such as puzzles that use items such as character or furniture skins. As a puzzle game, Lily's Garden doesn't usually conjure up images of customizable character costumes, but the game has begun to realize this through character costume skins, which can be purchased directly or unlocked through BP. I Want to Live's Trend Plus feature was introduced to the game last year and is a very interesting example of dress-up item innovation. Prior to this update, I Want to Live had a strong focus on player customization, but Trend N takes it to the next level with the addition of an in-game library of collectible items, which actually turns some of the rarer dress-up items into in-game fashion brands. Players can earn brand points by collecting branded clothing, which can be used as coupons or redeemed for exclusive items. Collecting all branded sets can unlock additional bonuses. Players can also view the story behind each brand and vote on which sets they would like to see in the game in the future. The reason we predict growth in realizing items through dress-up in 2023 is that many games are doubling down on social features, which means players are investing more in their avatars to make sure they are accurate representations of themselves. A prime example of this is Eggman Party, which we analyzed in our recent breakdown of Sugar Bean Man, Eggman Party, and Stumble Guys. Aside from the strong focus on real estate through dress-up items, Eggman Party shares many other similarities with Sugar Man and Stumble Guys, but the biggest difference is that Eggman Party is a broad social hub where players can interact with each other, which means players can show off and flaunt their dress-up items in another area of the game. I Will Survive's Weapon Skin Trial Permanent Possession Progression System adds a permanent possession progression system that unlocks dress-up items, e.g., you can try out a weapon skin for 3 days, but you can only permanently unlock that skin if you reach 100 points, to provide free and low-spending players with an opportunity to unlock trial-ready weapon skins, and even encourage players to purchase trial items to unlock skins faster, thus converting them to paid players. As the gap between real-world fashion and digital fashion continues to close, whether it's Balenciaga and Ralph Lauren partnering with Fortnite or Louis Vuitton promoting its brand through Final Fantasy and League of Legends, 2023 is expected to see more handheld games incorporating realizable dress-up items. Some handheld game publishers are launching their own external web stores for IAPs to bypass Apple's 30% cut from direct handheld purchases, as is the case with Game of Thrones, Conquest, Tribal Wars, Marvel Strike Force, and Star Trek: Fleet Command. In most cases, these external stores will discount paid currency available in the game to incentivize players to make purchases on the web store rather than in-game. Web shops for games such as Survival Nation also allow players to purchase more paid currency than is available in-game. More web stores are expected to appear. The biggest challenge for game studios is getting players to realize that games can be purchased through external platforms, but some publishers have made great strides in this area. Scopeless Yahtzee with Buddies offers a free gift to players who visit the web store. Players earn points for spending money in the store, which is a great way to incentivize purchases and ensure publicity in the player community. Raid: Legend of Shadows has also recently introduced a new points system, Plarium points, which are awarded to players for achieving certain milestones. Players can earn a small number of Plarium points by completing missions or making purchases in-game, but only through specific IAP packs. Interestingly, players who play the game through Plarium's own PC/Mac client can earn Plarium points by making purchases, doubling the number of points they can earn each day compared to the handheld version. The points system encourages more players to switch to the PC or Mac version, or at least make purchases through the PC/Mac, and Plarium is able to increase revenue by bypassing the App Store's cut. Blockchain gaming is one of the hottest trends for 2021, but the gradual decline in the value of cryptocurrencies, coupled with major market crises such as the bankruptcy of FTX, and the general disdain for blockchain games amongst gamers and the media, means that developers and investors are becoming more cautious. Does this mean that blockchain gaming is over in the mobile market? Of course not. There are still many developers using blockchain technology in developing handheld games, and if the market recovers, more big companies are expected to launch blockchain handheld games this year. In other words, the success of blockchain mobile games depends on the gameplay experience that puts the game at the top of the list, not the play-for-money element of the game. NFT is not the top priority of the core gameplay experience. There are other elements to the game, so if players don't want to touch NFT, they can avoid it altogether. Whether it's the collaboration between the Jedi Survival handheld game and Dragon Ball, Gospel Warriors, and Lionel Messi, or IP handheld games such as The Office and Trailer Park Boys, handheld games have been at the forefront of IP licensing for years. Newzoo confirmed the popularity of IP licensing in the handheld game space in its IP handheld report released last year. Only one of the 9 most downloaded handheld games in 2021 is not an IP handheld game, and 8 of the top 20 best-selling games in Japan in 2021 are IP handheld games. According to the report, IP games attract high-spending players, and utilizing well-known IPs, such as entertainment franchises, is a good way to increase natural traffic and lifetime revenue after the ATT policy is released. Now that video games are worth more than movies and TV combined, IPs are being used in ways that were almost unheard of just a few years ago. Who would have thought we'd see professional soccer players such as Paul Pogba and Neymar in Call of Duty, Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, Mech Arena, or that Justin Bieber would be an unlockable character in I Want to Live? Licensing is a win-win situation for both the copyright holder and the game studio. The game can be marketed and downloaded by promoting a well-known brand, and the existing IP can potentially reach millions of new fans. On the other hand, it is expected that AI will be integrated into the game, and when AI is integrated into the game, it should have the ability to play with the player. Let's say you are playing soccer with a second grader, it would be difficult to play a game based on his skill level, but AI-based games should move towards being able to play a game based on the level of the opponent. Intelligent gaming means using AI technology to understand the player's gameplay characteristics and skills to stimulate interest, prompt gameplay tactics when the player encounters an obstacle, and provide strategies based on the player's level of NPCs, etc. The goal of intelligent gaming is to learn about the player's gameplay characteristics and skills, so that the player can learn to play according to their level of skill. The goal of smart games is to learn from the player's gameplay patterns and provide them with more interesting elements, so that they can have fun in different parts of the game and deliver new experiences to the players. Almost a third of the world's population plays video games, making them one of the most widespread mass phenomena of our time. Many people spend hours a day living their lives in parallel worlds of all kinds. Video games are to the 21st century what movies were to the 20th and novels to the 19th. Memories gained through experience are just as important as the preservation of physical objects. Because games only become real games when we play them.